Fox 5 and Hot 97 present Street Soldiers with Lisa Evers.
I'm so glad you're joining us for this episode of Street Soldiers on hip-hop icons gone too soon. The passing of one of our favorite stars can feel like the loss of an extended family member because their music is intertwined with our memories. So to lose three in 2 weeks, DMX, Black Rob, and Shock G can feel overwhelming at times. We want you to know you're not alone. Hundreds of Rough Riders and thousands of fans turned out to pay tribute to DMX at the Barclays Center, while millions more watched live around the world. The death of Earl DMX Simmons from catastrophic cardiac arrest at the age of 50 stunned nearly everyone, coming as it did at a time when his life, both personally and professionally, was going in a positive direction. Just over a week later, 52-year-old rapper Robert Black Rob Ross lost his battle for life after years of severe, serious illnesses. Still reeling from these losses 5 days later, the body of 57-year-old Gregory Shock G. Jacobs, famous for Digital Underground's hit The Humpty Dance, was found in a Tampa hotel room.
We have to celebrate them and celebrate their genius, celebrate their contributions, and really look at their lives as lives that are worth examining. You know, each one of these individuals was special. Each one of them was a genius in their own way. They were all beloved.
Black Rob began as a bad boy artist from Harlem. His hit song, Whoa, from 2000, is still a club anthem to this day. Like DMX, he was in group homes and on the streets as a youth. And in recent years, he made a living touring, but the pandemic shutdown and his frail health ended his income stream. Tragically, he passed away in a hospital bed without a home, just as friends were putting together an ongoing fund for his housing and health treatments.
Black Rob, for me, was always like the homie around the way. That simple. He always talked about the neighborhood and what was happening in the neighborhood. He was like our mayor.
Shock G skyrocketed to fame with Digital Underground's fun hit Humpty Dance, and for having Tupac Shakur begin his career with the group as a backup dancer. His manager says he battled substance abuse issues most of his life. The cause of his death is not believed to be criminal. To feel sad is normal, since these artists are like members of our extended family, says Dr. Jeff Gardier.
All of these gentlemen were music icons. Not only was their music and their artistry absolutely incredible, but they meant something to us personally. We have many memories, many things that we've gone through in our lives.
One of the best ways to celebrate their lives is through the legacy of their music. Let's get into this more with our panel. Joining me is Dr. Jeff Gardier. He's a clinical psychologist and professor at Touro College of Osteopathic Medicine. Dr. Jeff, thanks so much for being with us.
Always a pleasure.
We appreciate it. Also joining us is Chuck Creekmur. He's the CEO and co-founder of allhiphop.com. Chuck, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Also with us is DJ Enough, Hot 97 DJ, mix show coordinator, legendary music producer, was Biggie's tour DJ when he was on tour, and been involved in many other artists and projects, and way too modest for his own good. There you go.
Hey guys, good to have you.
My brother, DJ Enough. Chuck, I want to start with you on this because you're in communication with people and you're following on allhiphop.com from all over the world. What kinds of things have you been seeing and hearing?
Well, you know, we've been hearing a lot, you know, just in the background, there's a lot of chatter about honestly how people passed away, what went wrong, what happened. A lot of that stuff remains off the record, obviously for reasons why it's not confirmed, number two, and also I think it's out of respect for the deceased. I think we want to honor these guys properly, and that's the main thing. But on the front end, I think there's a lot of positivity, and I think a lot of learning that we can get from these unfortunate tragedies.
Enough. A lot of people, you know, the music that they all gave us, the entertainment, a lot of us tie certain moments in our lives or experiences or, you know, things that were happening at that point to the various songs, to the music, to them coming out and entertaining us and providing us with this. And a lot of people were saddened because it's like with Black Rob, you know, especially there were these, he was homeless at the end of his life. He's making a plea on GoFundMe for help, you know, and the day before he died, I had gotten a call. people around him, Jaheim and some of his crew, they were they were actually in the process with a lawyer of setting up an ongoing trust fund for him to get him stabilized, healthy, and housed. So I think that really plays a role on people. But when you see that narrative, is that the exception in hip hop, or is that the more the rule?
It's not the exception, but I think we sometimes forget our icons are human beings, and we have everyday problems just like everybody else. And sometimes in hip hop, we want to always look the best with our bling, with our cars, with the music, the girls, and everything. And that's the image sometimes we portray in hip hop. But it's not always that. It's sometimes the everyday struggles that we go through that these actual icons actually help everybody else get through. Is just, it's real life stuff. It's just real life stuff, So whatever Black Rob and DMX were going through, and Shock G, it's just sad because, like this episode says, they're gone way too early, way too early,
right? Because they're already, like, all three of them
right.
three of them in 50 or in their early 50s, and then going at a stage in their lives where they were kind of redesigning. Okay, what's this next chapter going to be? Dr. Jeff, why do we feel so many people were depressed about this? Many people were sad. Why do we take this so personally?
Well, these are the people that we've idolized for so long. Their music, in many ways, has defined and has served as bookmarks, if you will, for many of the great memories that we've had about our own lives. And certainly, we've been influenced by these hip hop masters. That's who they really are. We still tend to see in our minds Black Rob as a young man, Shock G, who was a young man when he passed, as a young man, DMX in his prime, with his full strength, roaring the way that he did. And so when we begin to see towards the end of their lives, or when they pass, and then we actually get to see much more information, and we begin to find out more about what has happened to them in the later years, that becomes very sad and very shocking for all of us, because we realize exactly what DJ Enough said, that these are real people with real world problems.
Chuck, one of the things too, especially for the artists who had hits from years ago, many of them, were the up and coming generation of hip hop fans, got acquainted with them through social media, but they were making a lot of their money through touring and through doing shows around the United States, around the world, all different places. I mean, there's a huge market, it seems, for artists, that in America, okay, well, they're not popping or they're not hot, don't have a hot song on the charts, but they're legends. For the legends, made a lot of money touring. And also, during the pandemic, with everything shut down, they couldn't do shows. With Black Rob, that was the case. People close to him told me that's how he lived, from doing shows, and that played a role in just their circumstances too.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about what's a living wage look like, or how to get over even just in life, you may not be the most popular artist, but if you're able to get 1,000 here, 1,000 there, 5,000 here, 5,000 there, or even go overseas, like you mentioned, that makes all the difference in the world than being able to get absolutely nothing. And the other side of it is, I think that we're a very proud people, and we're strong, and we want to present that and look powerful on the at face and behind the scenes. Many of us are struggling, suffering, going through a whole lot. A friend of mine personally, he almost had his foot amputated, and he's still on my text message telling me I'm getting better. And I'm like, dude, I know what's going on. I talked to your brother. So we have to humble ourselves a little bit. There was this huge, incredible rush to help Black Rob, but we found out too late. I think if we had known throughout this year or so that he was languishing, we probably could have intervened quicker.
No, people would definitely have helped. Enough. What about that? The image factor of hip hop being a barrier to people getting help when they need it.
Yeah, I mean, even for myself, I was sick at the top of the year. I had caught a stroke, and it was something that I didn't want to talk to nobody about. I didn't want to make any mentions of it. Me and my wife had to deal with it on our own. I had to get healthy. I had to eat right again. I had to exercise. I had to physically start doing things differently and start making a different path for myself so I could be in a better space for tomorrow. Because I'm like, if I don't take care of myself, I could be dead myself.
Right.
You know, but that's what we do. We do that. And I don't know why we do that. But when we need help, we don't ask for it. And if we do ask for it, maybe we're asking the wrong people. And that's part of the problem. That's what I meant by everyday problems that we have. I don't care how iconic you are. I don't care how many records you sold, how many tours you've been on. We have regular, everyday people problems.
We'll have much more when we come back. Enough in terms of let's talk about DMX first, because in terms of, you know, his funeral was seen around the world, the memorial service was seen around the world. What was it about him that made him so unique to you?
I mean, he was the dog. He was the East Coast dog. We got a West Coast dog, but he was our East Coast dog. And for me, it was the first time a guy was like yelling at us and rah, and what, you know, like all that excitement was just, it was just, his energy was just amazing. But he also spoke from a religious standpoint, which was, for me, never heard of. Like, I never heard religion and hip hop to the magnitude that he, you know, exploited his rap lyrics to everybody. But that was the exciting part.
Chuck, in terms of DMX, it's like the reaction has been unbelievable. The people's sense of loss, and just the appreciation for who he was as an artist.
Yeah, definitely. You know, he was the quintessential alpha male, but he had that sensitive side too. You know, he had that other side that was so open and honest. And I think honesty is his strongest attribute. You know, you think about the 90s, you know, if you just take the purest sense of DMX, you know, a lot of guys had some of those characteristics, but when you add the spirituality, the honesty, the vulnerability that he showed, in addition to being the hardest dude, then you're kind of cooking with grease at that point, and you realize how special that concoction was. And the other thing that I want to say is that, you know, he never gave up, and that's like something we can all relate to. He never gave up. I'm reading his book again, and his book really chronicles his story in a way that you fully understand all that he was. You know, so his book was published in 2003, but you know, so much has happened since then, but being able to analyze him in detail up until that point really shows why he was special.
Dr. Jeff, when you look at him as a human being, as a personality, horrific childhood, tremendous abuse from his own mother, neglect, which they said in a beautiful way at one of the memorial services. She was a teenage mom. He was clearly needed the love. He wasn't getting it. And then all these different group homes, being out in the streets, living in abandoned buildings with stray dogs at times as a teenager. I mean, heartbreaking types of stories. When you look at him, there's a tremendous vulnerability that Chuck mentioned. And then also but just that resiliency of like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to pick myself back up. How do you look at him just from your standpoint?
Well, certainly a person who had tremendous resiliency too, despite the pain that he continued to manifest throughout his whole life. He had a number of children, so that tells me that he loved life and he loved children. And so to me, that's something that's very admirable, of course. But I think that this is the lesson that we need to learn, that when you've had that kind of a childhood that DMX had, and it was traumatic, and he was re-traumatized quite often, that money, fame, all of those big things don't cure those problems. Unless you get the proper help, unless you're in therapy, unless you have the right people around you all the time, no matter how high you go, eventually you're going to be pulled back down by the gravity of those psychological issues and the traumas, and you are going to crash and burn. And that's what ended up happening with him. So if nothing else, out of tribute to DMX, let's get to all of our other hip hop stars who are having psychological issues. We all know about them, but we don't talk about them. We want to respect these individuals. We don't want to put, rumors out there, but we know that they're suffering. We know that they're crying. We know that they're in emotional pain. Let's get them the help right now while they're still alive.
Enough. What do you think we can learn, like in terms of these legends that we've lost, and also the way that they live their lives or the way their lives played out? It's like, what do we need to take away from all this?
I think we just got to do better for ourselves. And we're talking about all across the board: health, wealth, family, friends. Offline, Jeff mentioned that we all need either a godmother or a godfather to sometimes give us that advice that we might need to help us just go into the right space, whether it's investing financially, whether it's investing in your health financially, spiritually. All these things is what we need to continue to move forward so we could be in a better space as a human race. And on top of that, we could be better hip hoppers for the future.
Chuck, in terms of when you look at all three of them, were there certain themes that or experiences or characteristics that all three of these men shared?
Yeah, definitely. There's something we don't really talk about is that we celebrate dysfunction a lot in hip hop. And I would like to normalize wellness, and really normalize getting better and normalize seeing people evolve and grow and do better, get better. And I think the common thread is that they were suffering. They were all suffering in one way or another for many, many years. And we know this now. And so we have to normalize eating good and things like that, but not when we're older, when we're younger, because we're seeing that this lifestyle that we, indulged in is now paying dividends as we age. And I would just love to see us be cool with not drinking, be cool with not smoking, be cool with eating vegetables and eating right, and passing that on to our children.
And just taking those kind of changes. Dr. Jeff, in terms of, we look at them and then people go, oh, well, you know what? I'm doing that too. I gotta watch out. Or also too, they look at, that they were so big when they were in their 20s, and then now in their 50s, it's kind of like all of these problems are coming to a head.
Well, it's about it's not running the sprint, right? It really is about running the marathon.
Absolutely.
And making sure that, exactly as Chuck said, exactly what Enough said, take care of ourselves financially, take care of ourselves spiritually, emotionally, physically. It's about the long game here. But I think if nothing else that we can learn from them is that, life is to be celebrated. Life is to be lived. We talk about mindfulness. We talk about gratitude. And we need to enjoy just little pleasures of life. Sometimes are the biggest thing if we can have some stability. The super highs are great, but eventually we get tired and we end up with the super low. So we have to find that middle ground to be able to survive in a way that we find balance in our lives. And that's something perhaps they didn't have, but we owe it to them. We owe it to their memories. We owe it to their greatness and everything they brought us, to learn from their words, to learn about the importance of dealing with our demons, and more than anything else, to take care of ourselves and to love ourselves.
Enough a sense that some people have of like, wow, that could have been me, or that could have been, somebody I love, or my husband, or my man, or my brother, uncle, father, son.
I was definitely there. There's a bunch of times where you hit rock bottom. I'll tell some personal stories about myself. I caught a stroke in the top of 2020. So I was down for a minute, and really down and out. But, I was lucky enough to get back. I lost some weight. I did some exercising, and I had to spiritually try to find myself to get myself back into the space that I needed to be so I could continue on. But, sometimes we don't realize, like, growing up, that the foods we eat, the things that are around us are killing us. No, your mom gave you food that was killing you. Your dad gave you food that was killing you, because they didn't know either. But we need to change that narrative. We need to change that so that we could teach each other, this is the way we should do it. This is the way we got to do it. And this is maybe the way we should celebrate life.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Street Soldiers on Hip Hop Stars Gone Too Soon. You can share this episode and watch it again on our Fox 5 NY YouTube page. I'm Lisa Evers. Remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. Let's push for peace, love, and justice for all.